Psalm 47. Oh, another exciting one. Written by the sons of Korah. The sons of Korah are a segment of the priesthood that David established, but it extended beyond David. And the timing of Psalm 47 and 48, both of them are pretty uncertain. Some people suggest that Psalm 47 could have been written when David brought the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. Could have been when David dedicated the temple. Could have been when Jehoshaphat defeated the armies, had that miraculous deliverance in 2 Chronicles 20, I want to say it was, with King Jehoshaphat. Or it could have been at the miraculous defeat of Sennacherib's Assyrian army, when it was defeated when they were trying to invade Jerusalem specifically. So it could be really anywhere from the time of David, from 1100 BC all the way to 700. Kind of a big window where this could have been. We're not totally certain. Maybe we'll get some context clues, but we're not totally sure. But anyway, let's jump into Psalm 47. Israel and the nations erupt in worship as Israel's Messiah inaugurates the Messianic age, receiving allegiance from all the nations of the earth as he reigns from Jerusalem. So let's look. Clap your hands, all the people. Shout to God with loud songs of joy. This great worship is being called for. For the Lord the Most High is to be feared, a great king over all the earth. Again, if this is David or not, David really did this in Psalm 24, where he blended the lines between Israel's Messiah and Israel's God, that there's a really close correlation there, and even maybe more than a correlation. But here it is again in Psalm 47. The Lord, the Most High, is to be feared as a great king over all the earth. He subdued the peoples under us and the nations under our feet. Now, this is interesting because there's a lot of biblical prophecy about nations that were previously adversarial to Israel being submitted to Israel's authority in the Messianic age, that literally Israel is given governing authority over their adversaries in the age to come. So this is a specific promise alluding to that. And he chose our heritage for us, the pride of Jacob, whom he loved. So something interesting about that phrase, verse 4, he chose our heritage for us. Israel recognized the superiority of God's sovereign plan, literally admitting that God's redemptive plan is better than any kind of prosperity that we could achieve in our own strength. We would rather receive the inheritance that God would choose for us as better than the inheritance that we would choose for ourselves. It's a beautiful phrase there in verse 4. Similar to that theme of Psalm 24, it's Israel's Messiah is receiving this, he's achieving this victory and receiving this dominion that has this global impact of all the peoples and all the nations. Gentile nations, which are most likely I already mentioned that, most likely former adversaries, are subjected to Israel's governing authority in the Messianic age. And then let's go to verse 5. God has gone up with a shout. The Lord with the sound of a trumpet. Oh, Psalm 5 is something really fun. Now, it's often referenced as kind of referring to Psalm 110, where who is ascended to sit at God's right hand. It's kind of talking about that messianic figure. He's gone up with a shout. It kind of foreshadows Jesus' ascension, some would say, but I think more historically relevant, it would be the interpretation that compares to the Messiah literally ascending Jerusalem, Mount Zion, to receive authority over the nations, as described in Psalm 24. I think we're literally talking about, what are we ascending? What's being ascended? It is going up Jerusalem, actually entering into Jerusalem, ascending Mount Zion, and receiving authority. Now, what's cool about verse 5 is we have this great enthronement with a shout. There's this shout. And the shout in Hebrew can also be translated as war cry. There's both war cry and there's joyful shout, and the Hebrew can kind of be translated both ways. It's a really interesting word study. We can look at that more another time. But also, the sound of a trumpet is the blast of a shofar. And this is common in different Hebrew festivals and different traditions to have this blast of the shofar. And that's going to become really common language in later biblical prophets that are going to reference the blast of a trumpet and the coming of the Messiah. And of course, the New Testament is going to talk about that a whole lot. We get some specific trumpets and what happens at the blast of the trumpets. And it's fun. I think this is a neat kind of celebratory ceremony that's happening where we've got this shouting and this trumpeting. And I mean, some of our Pentecostal brethren might just call that Sunday morning. But hey, amen. We know we can look forward to this when the Messiah is ascending Zion, taking authority, like we see here and in Psalm 24. All right, let's jump on to verses 6 and onward. Oh my goodness. Sing praises to God. Sing praises to our King. Again, it's God and King. Interesting. God reigns over the nations. God reigns over the nations. He sits on his holy throne. The princes of all the peoples gather to him as the people of the God of Abraham. For the shields of the earth belong to God. He's highly exalted. Oh man. So again, we're blurring the lines a little bit between Israel's messianic king and the word for God being used is Elohim, which is more, I think, historically why people think this is after David. Elohim kind of blends into language that gets more closer to the divided kingdom era. But like Psalm 24, God reigns as king of all the earth during the messianic age, and dignitaries and diplomats from all the nations gather as grafted members of these covenant ceremonies. Where is that? God reigns. The princes of the people gather as the people of the God of Abraham. As the people of the God of Abraham, with the people of the God of Abraham anyway, they're involved, they're included. We're participants in this as Gentile nations gathering to Israel for these festivals and to bring tribute. For the shields of the earth belong to God. That phrase for the shields would represent the allegiance of the world's authorities. Every national authority will submit to the God of Israel, and his king, as his king, rules from Jerusalem. So kind of a beautiful, this is often referred to as a enthronement psalm, and it pairs really well with Psalm 24, Psalm 110. Some of the ones that we've looked at recently go with it really well. All right, that's going to conclude Psalm 47.